Now we get to swing it down to Austin, Texas, and visit with our good friends over at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Chuck DeVore down at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Chuck, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Chad. I'm doing great. Are you ready for the weekend?
Absolutely. It's going to be it's going to be nice at least for a couple of days, and then we get back into the 30s. But we'll take a few days in the 70s. All right.
Well, it's still wintertime.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. How's the building, by the way? How's everything going over at the Texas Public Policy Foundation? For those who don't know,
we're getting ready to move in, not this weekend, but I think the following weekend. Of course, I won't even be here during the move. We have a bunch of our team that's going out to CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference, and so I'll be out in Washington D.C. when we make the move. So I have to put my stuff in boxes and hope it gets into the right office.
Very cool. Well, you know what? Next time you come on with after CPAC, not only will we talk a little bit about obviously what's happening down in Austin, but also your experience there at CPAC, because that's always an interesting time there. Just hearing from all the different politicians.
Well, absolutely, and of course we're gearing up for the 2016 presidential contest, and there'll be a lot of folks there kind of previewing that contest at CPAC. So that's always the most fun part of it, I think, just as a person who enjoys observing politics.
Who do you want to hear from them? Who are you most interested in right now?
Well, I want to hear them all, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basically we've had 8 years of soon to be 8 years of the current president, and you've got a lot of different folks out there that have different approaches. Some are more on the emphasis of foreign policy and military affairs, others on taxes and domestic affairs. You have a wide variety of opinion. There's a broad range of policies within certainly the alternative to what's in the White House right now, and I'm just looking forward to hearing what people have to say about that.
Yeah, a lot of good ideas that'll be traded.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, speaking of good ideas, a few days ago we heard from Governor Abbott, and he had his State of the State address and had quite a few proposals contained in that address. And so you want to talk about a few of those today?
Absolutely, yeah. The governor, during the State of the State address, laid out a pretty good agenda, I think, going forward for the state.
Yeah, I think let's take care of two big fiscal items right off the bat. The governor talked about, as far as his priorities, trying to increase private sector job growth by reducing the business tax, otherwise known as the franchise tax, by about $2 billion, along with reforming it. He'd also like to see tax reductions for veteran-owned businesses. A lot of Texans don't know, because they don't pay an individual income tax, they don't know that there's a business tax. Because only a few 100,000 people pay it, right? People who run their own businesses, but the average Texan is often clueless about this. And of course, a lot of folks don't know that businesses at the end of the day don't really pay taxes. It's their customers that pay the taxes because they pass along higher costs for the taxes in the form of more expensive goods and services. And so reducing the business tax, as the governor is proposing, would probably stimulate job growth and could potentially reduce some prices for consumers. And so that's kind of an exciting thing. And then the governor also talked about providing property owners with about $2.2 billion in property tax relief. Now, this will be a bit tricky because, of course, property taxes are collected at the local level, and the difficult thing in providing relief in property taxes is the state can provide the relief, and then the local governments just increase the taxes at the local level.
Right.
And so a year or two later, you've lost your gain.
Yeah, and in fact, you had, if I'm remembering right, was it Monday? You had some of the Texas largest cities, mayors who gathered down in Austin who were talking about this. They're absolutely against these property tax cuts and the caps that are also being discussed, correct?
Well, they are very much against it, and the thing that they're most against is changing some of these rollback provisions. Right now, if a local entity changes tax rates such that between that and potential growth in valuations or new people having moved to the area, the revenues go up by 8% or more, the people have the right to circulate petitions and try to recall that increase, try to basically cancel that increase in property taxes if there's more than an 8% increase. Now, the challenge with that is you got to circulate petitions. And the further challenge with that is who gets to determine whether those petitions are valid, right? Well, the very entity that wants to raise your taxes. And so frequently you see, oh, well, you didn't turn in the right number of signatures, or these signatures are invalid. What some folks would like to do is change that threshold from 8% to 4%, so it would be more easily triggered, and then make the election automatic so you don't have to go out and gather signatures. So anytime property taxes would go up by more than 4% in a specific jurisdiction, then there'd be a vote to confirm it. And if the people can be convinced that they should be taxed more, they'll vote yes. And if the folks that want that additional tax money can't convince the public, then they'll have to give back the money. They'll have to roll back that tax increase.
Let me ask you something that some of these mayors have talked about. Anise Parker was one of them. And these mayors who were in this meeting, the 9 mayors, the 9 largest cities in Texas, they kept saying that the state is trying to go against local control here. That the Republican-led state government is trying to go against local control. They're going to harm what cities can do as far as building parks and infrastructure, and of course they always say parks. They don't talk about all the rather frivolous things they want to build, but they always talk about parks. Does this, what the governor has proposed, what even Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has proposed, can that hurt the local entity?
Well, what we're talking about here is liberty as the overriding principle rather than local control. Local control is a nice-to-have thing, but it is a means to an end, and the end is more liberty for Texans, for Americans. And so, for example, you could have a local city that is absolutely tyrannical in the things that it's trying to do. And the way they are able to do that is by having elections, for example, that are off-year elections, off-time elections that are extremely low turnout affairs where only the special interests end up voting. And they control that, or you had what you had here in Austin for many years with at-large districts that did not reflect the intellectual and demographic diversity of Austin. That's just recently changed, and the city council in Austin has completely changed. So local control is one of these things that is often used as an excuse, but if local control doesn't result in more liberty, you have to question, what are you getting out of local control? The other thing, of course, historically, is that the states in America were the creators of both the federal government and of local government. So all of your municipalities and special districts and counties in Texas exist because the state created them. And that's something that's also important to understand. So whenever you hear a local official talking about local control, just be concerned about your taxes going up. And
hold on to the wallets.
Liberty being infringed. Exactly. And the thing that's amazing too is that if you look at Texas's per capita debt, we have among the lowest per capita state debt in the country. But when you throw in state and local debt, we're number 2 to New York.
Wow.
So it's the local government that has been the quickest growing portion of government in Texas for decades. And I think that that's what you see with Governor Abbott trying to address this issue. It does little good to Texas if we send fiscally conservative people to Austin and they pass fiscally conservative measures, but then the big cities where most Texans live are growing out of control, their government and their taxes and their regulations. That is what Governor Abbott is trying to address, and I think that's a proper thing to focus on.
Visiting with Chuck DeVore, Texas Public Policy Foundation. Before we let you go, I want to talk transportation real quick because that was something else that the governor brought up, that he wanted to, I believe, dedicate, half of the motor vehicle sales tax to transportation, correct?
That's correct, and a lot of folks are in favor of that. We have 2 cautions about that, though, that we certainly would like to see addressed. Number one, whenever you constitutionally dedicate spending, that spending goes offline from the state's constitutional spending limit, the tax and expenditure limit. And so the danger in that is if you keep putting things off the books, then government, the rest of government, can grow more because you've basically taken money offline, and that doesn't count anymore toward the tax and expenditure limit. So the rest of government can grow more. That's danger number one. Danger number two is, while we believe that more money ought to be spent on transportation and that the legislature should prioritize that in the context of other spending, there are reforms that need to be enacted with procurement at TxDOT, at the Texas Department of Transportation. There's written into state statutes very specific restrictions that prevent the taxpayers from getting the most bang for their buck when roads and bridges are being built. And we need to change. Just 4 small changes in statutes could result, Chad, in as much as $1 billion a year of savings over the next 20 years, and all without, I should think, all without any major controversy. And let's make these changes so we can build more road and bridge for the money.
Chuck DeVore, Texas Public Policy Foundation, as always, appreciate your time. And I guess next time we visit with you, it'll be after CPAC and while the legislative session is still rocking and rolling down there.
Absolutely.
All right. Chuck, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That's Chuck DeVore, Texas Public Policy Foundation.